Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Pink Tron. Tonight we've got a slightly different cast for you. Steve Pritchard is getting married tomorrow. So, Steve, very, very best wishes for tomorrow. Obviously, sorry you can't be with us for very, very good reasons, but hope everything goes well tomorrow. And Becca's also sadly unable to join us, but we have managed to find someone from the dirt racing team, Shawn McAfee, aka Mac Attack, who has been a long-term participant of our Summer Racing League series, is here to join us tonight. But with no further ado, Sean, we always start these off with what are you drinking tonight?
Well, a big howdy, guys. Down here in Texas, I'd love to say I'm drinking a nice Lone Star pint of beer, but I'm actually drinking a lemon LaCroix, so nothing too fancy today. Just a little sparkling water.
How about you, Craig?
So I am drinking an Electric Unicorn White IPA.
Ooh, that sounds delicious.
It
I,
is.
I am genuinely drinking a bottle of wine called I Love Malbec.
That is amazing.
And it comes from a brand called I Heart Wines. It's
Very
actually,
creative.
So
it's
the
actually
question,
really quite nice.
that was my question. Is it actually any good? But that is great labeling.
I also want to do a quick shout out to Ben Poynton, as well as the many, 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 many other people who very kindly donated to my very sad and lost cause. Ben sent over £50 during the week with the explicit instruction that I had to order wine. Ben, it's going to arrive in the next 3 days, and there's going to be 6 bottles of Argentinian Malbec. So thank you very much. Sean is with us from Dirt. Sean, tell us a little bit about Dirt. What does Dirt stand for? What was the where did it originate from? When did you start? How many of our riders have you poached? That sort of thing.
As far as I know, we haven't successfully poached any riders that I know of yet, but we're working on that. DIRT stands for Dads Inside Riding Trainers, and right at the moment, I think we're the largest Zwift team on Zwift Power. So we got a lot of folks in a lot of different places. We're really heavy here on the East Coast of the United States, and I think that's where some of the founding members, Jason Stern and Ken Knoll and Doug Mastroni. But they all kind of met over there on the East Coast, riding early in the morning on Zwift, and one thing led to another, and they said, "Hey, let's ride together," and that became this huge group of dads, just kind of supporting each other all across the world. We talk about riding, we talk about training, we talk about kids, we talk about all sorts of stuff. It's we're living life together. So I've been a part of it since maybe 3 months or so after it first started, and I can't tell you what year that was because it's all been a blur for the past two.
Yeah, last 18 months have been quite crazy.
Yes.
So, obviously, you, Clay, and a number of other dirt guys have really, really bought into the whole herd summer racing league, and we love seeing you guys there every week. You obviously, you guys bring a level of competition, and you always talk about how you work together strongly as a team. I know Craig's going to have a few questions on this, but why don't you just tell us about why don't you just tell us about what your setup is, how you guys work together during races?
So I don't know how much of this is, not labeled top secret, but we do try to we try to bring a level of organization. We honestly we just kind of fell into the herd. We had one of our members, Chris Schwenker, and he had said he came out and said, "Hey, come join this thing. It's a points race, and it's kind of all over the place." And so when we first jumped into that, we spent the first season, and I think this was HSRL 2, but we spent that almost the entire season trying to figure out how the game gets played. So, by the time we got into HSRL 3, we had scripts written out for like, all right, we're going to attack these different races, and these people will do this, these people will block other riders, and it became like this just ridiculous thing that we started doing. And, we'd have guys that would wake up at 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning just to jump into a race and try to knock down. I think who was the guy that won that last series, but we're trying to knock Thiege Diplomat, trying to knock him down by one point. But we slowly chipped away at it. We've had, I think, the past 2 seasons, we've had a dirt rider win the B category, which is our big focus. And then we're getting some folks that are really stepping up in A. Dustin Elliott and Dan Wisner. Those guys tore it up last season in the A category. And so we're just, we're having fun. We love this series. The points races you guys put together are just a ton of fun. It's the best way to race, I think.
So I completely agree. So going back through that same timeline from my perspective, and I think James was just a little bit behind me. That HSRL 2, I was doing really well in C, and got pipped on the last race by our good buddy Cy Seymour, and then so I got promoted to B in between Series 2 and Series 3, and then got dumped into trying to fight with you guys, and that was quite the education.
We have a lot of fun, man. We talk crap on our Discord channel all day long, and through Facebook and everything else. It's a riot.
Yeah, no, that's good. I guess something, and this is actually genuine interest on how you guys work out getting people into the same place that are doing the same race. As far as I assume you're using Discord channels. We do too, obviously. Mm-hmm. So it just how you work out that link up, because that's always been probably our weakness, is getting people expecting each other to be there, and then we're teaming up. When we do team up, we tend to have a lot of fun doing it. But
so it works really well from what I've seen as small groups. If this season for HSRL, we had a very large group all across B that was going at this, and I think we were really successful because we had a lot of guys that came out, they showed up, they did all the races, and they performed well. But I think we didn't have the level of kind of that camaraderie or kind of watching each other's back that we had in HSRL 2, and that was something pretty unique because, I mean, it was basically a group of 8 of us that we were just kind of like, hey, let's take this really over the top seriously and try to do really, really well on the herd and see if we can't, supplant anybody else and get our man up there. We have found that kind of using, a Google Docs sheet that everybody can kind of share between us is a good way to keep people straight. Just using it as a basic sign up, and we've got so we call it the Dirt Domination Playbook, and it's specifically for the herd series, and basically just consists of tips and tricks for each course and a sign up sheet for all the different time zones. And so we'll have people who register for a time zone and say, hey, I'm going to be there, and then a couple weeks later people start expecting to see other people they've raced with the prior week. So that's how we've done it so far.
So that's really interesting. I guess there's a bit of there's always been a little bit of a reticence to really get into using team tactics for us, where this is kind of our own series, where the primary competition is how well can you do against the other herders. I know that's how a lot of people take it. So it's an interesting thing for us, but I know we did have a little bit of a shenanigan going on for the James's little surprise on the lap time prime in Paris, but that didn't work out well personally for me with a series of dropouts. But that was a lot of fun. We got a lot of guys all in the same race for that.
The plan was fantastic, and the plan was organised very well. It's just obviously you can't do anything about technicals, and you were very unlucky with your dropouts. But just how everyone all pulled together and tried to work to the plan was great to see. I think on the point of DIRT coordinating to get everyone together at the same time, I think that probably says a lot about our origins. So I think an awful lot of herd racing originated in D and C, and I certainly originated in D. And it's more been about sort of participation, encouragement, safe place for racing, and those sort of things, rather than the competition aspect has absolutely grown. But I don't think that's where we started from.
Sure.
And as people have grown, and we have more A's and more A's in the herd now than we ever have done, and certainly we've got a really large contingent of B's similar to DIRT. I'd like to think that will come, but also I want to ensure that we are looking after our core base as well, which essentially I'd say probably RCs with a large number of Ds as well. And I think in the last series, I probably put on too many long races that almost alienated some of the D riders. So I've certainly looked in this current series to make it a bit more doable for everyone.
Yeah, that there was a couple of those that would be very long in a D category.
More than a couple, honestly.
Yeah. There were a few. I was probably in a really bad mood when I set the last series. I can't remember. Someone had probably annoyed me.
I think that may
It
have
was
been
probably me. Oh man.
Generally, I have to warn people when I'm deciding what the schedule's going to be. So if people are really nice to me at that time, I'm actually really quite nice to everyone else. But if I'm in a really bad mood, you get some really long stages in. So I must have been in an absolutely hideous one when I thought 10 laps of hilly would be a good idea.
Yeah, the 10 laps of hilly was crazy.
That was terrific race, and I mean it absolutely killed me on the eighth hill to watch our good buddy Clay and the rest of the lead group just ride away from me. But that was a really fun lead group we had of 7 riders up to that point.
And I think that everyone that did complete the route, sadly I didn't because my shoes snapped. I think that everyone that did complete it got a really great sense of achievement, and certainly that's been the comments that I've seen after that race was finished. But people will be very glad to hear there are no 92-kilometer races this series. Shawn, so obviously I'm race director of the herd. I understand that you run your own outdoor racing series.
I do. So we just kicked off with our first week last Thursday, and then had one last night. Today being Friday. But I run here in Dallas, Texas. I run the DFW Summer Series. We started it up 10 years ago almost, I think now. And it's a weeknight mountain bike racing series, which here in Dallas, Texas, we are a little short on mountains, but we've got some great little mountain bike trails and a dedicated community here that rides constantly. So I started putting together just some short track mountain bike races 10 years ago. And, I've found myself continuing to do so today. And it's one of the things that I love doing. I just like to bring some excitement, some passion, and a lot of fun. A lot of fun and a lot of smack talk to whatever bicycle environment I can find. So, whether it's Zwift or outdoors, I thrive on competition. I think it's a lot of fun, and I'm just glad that we have these avenues, to meet each other and have fun.
Yeah, absolutely. What sort of distance are these races over?
So these are like real short. Typically, our juniors and women's categories, they both go for 30 minutes. Usually about 6 miles in total. But these are, as you can probably guess, it's like sprint distance, road racing or something. Like, so the Dirt Doozy or some of these other short little mass start events that are on Zwift, that's what it is. It's just a all-out sprint for at least a half hour. Our men's races usually go about 45 minutes up to an hour, and so it's just hard racing, and it's real tight. A lot of twisty sections. People are having a great time, and we've had some massive participation so far this year. So just having a ton of fun.
Sounds like absolute carnage.
Oh yeah.
When you say like high levels of participation, what sort of numbers are we talking about?
So we've had 150 people show up and race the past 2 weeks, and that's mind blowing to me because when I started this thing up 10 years ago, it was me and maybe 10 other people hanging out in the field of a park, and it's just kind of grown over time. So we've had 200 plus people, including spectators and volunteers, on the past 2 weeks, and I'm hoping that we can just continue to grow and get more people out on bikes.
Yeah, brilliant. You mentioned that yesterday you had a race. When's the next one?
Next one's going to be next Thursday. So no, not the 24th. Whatever next Thursday is be, the 1st of July.
Canada Day.
Is it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you go to the WTRL website, you are presented with a very, very in-your-face Canadian flag.
It's only fair.
So I think, and I probably can't really ask for questions for this. I think the next segment we're looking to do. So tonight's a little bit different, just because we're down a couple of comrades. So we thought we'd have a chat with Shawn about Dirt, and thought we'd also do a little segment on Herd Racing League and where it came from and where it's going. So I probably can't really ask the questions on this, so I'm going to need you guys to help me out a little bit.
So James, I guess I do have a couple questions, and I mean I've asked you a bunch of this in the past, but there's new ones too. So one I've really got is how did you end up as the guy? Because I mean you were a pretty novice biker, I think, or a cyclist, I think, when you took all this on.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those that don't know, so the Herd was essentially a splinter group out of another group called Zwift Beginner Riders, which was entirely centered around group rides, generally paces of around like 1 to 1.5 watts per kilo. Back in the very end of December 2018, the Herd was formed, and at the same time, the Herd Racing League was created as well. At that stage, there was a single racing series, which had 3 events. They were what are currently race number 2, 4, and 5 of the Summer Racing League series. So in UK time, 2250 on Friday, 1200 and 2000 on Saturday. And basically, they were for riders with a max of 2.5 watts per kilo. There were category A through H, and each of those categories was a subset of 0 to 2.5 watts per kilo. So if you did over 2.5, you got disqualified, which in my earlier days was my ultimate goal was to get disqualified. I wanted to do more than 2.5 watts a kilo. But the downside to that was that you never knew which category you're going to be in each week, because the subsets were so small. But essentially how I got involved was I would try to encourage a few guys every week to do WKG's mini crit, which was basically I think the most common one was I think it's 3 laps of Volcano Circuit counterclockwise, and occasionally a couple of single lap ones. I think now they do a single lap of Champs Elysees, which is the only time Champs Elysees is tolerable, when it's just a single lap.
I hate that place.
Oh god, yeah. So I would try and get a few people together, and then one of us, I can't remember who, noticed that this group called WTRL, who are now obviously very well known, were trying out this team time trial concept, and I thought, yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun. Let's get a team together. So I called a few people out, and we ended up putting 2 teams together for WTRL TTT number 1. They'd done some beta testing before that, but we put two teams in the first official TTT, and now I think in the winter months we have between about 25 and 30 teams, and it kind of went from there really. I got in touch with a few people at Zwift about organising new events, changed HBR into a mass start for everyone series. Initially, the first time we did HBR, your average watts per kilo determined which category you were going to go in, which from an administration point of view was an absolute bloody nightmare. But that evolved into a single category racing series. We then had the Tour of Hadopia, which was basically 10 weeks of absolute hell. Generally 90-minute races, some were a couple of hours. Added for Stampede, which is our individual time trial series. Bullseye followed, which is our first ever line multi-lap points race. And then Herd Summer Racing League evolved from that, which was all fastest segment times. And after that, we put on Herd of Mountain Goats, our climbing series, and then just recently our first ladies series. So it's all grown quite rapidly.
You're blowing it out of the park, man. That's you got a lot going on. Which one is your favorite?
I'm really enjoying Stampede at the moment, to be honest. I mean, HSRL will always be my favourite because I absolutely adore the concept. But I'm really enjoying the time trials.
James, I personally, I think the Herd Summer Racing League is amazing. Both from it's whether you're at the very front of the race competing for the win, or you're new in the category and you fall off the pace early. It's really good for competition. It's lots of fun. It's really good for development because you still have something to work for all the way through the race. I think the format is absolutely brilliant, and so I joined Herd Racing League just as the start of HSRL 1 happened. So that's my entire history in Herd Racing League, and I absolutely love it.
Yeah, so when I started the Summer Racing League series, I think I was a very low C, and I was a little bit bored with always finishing at the back of the pack. I just thought, actually, if we've got like time segment racing, there's something for everyone. There's something for guys at the front because they're going to be quick, but there's also something for the guys at the back too, so that they can just like sit up through in between the segments and then really go for it. And at that time, I was a lot heavier, but I also had a 1200 watt sprint, so I could really hammer the sprint segments and actually pick up some really good points and finish mid-pack, whereas I was actually right at the back of the field, but I could hammer the sprints and actually not do too badly. And there are guys who are like the back end of a category that are quite light and are actually really good at climbing, so they could hammer the climbs as well. And then you've got your all-rounders who can like hammer both and do really well. But no, I love the concept. I think in terms of conceptual race series, that and Bullseye are definitely my favourite too. But I'm terrible at Bullseye.
Even with the 1200 watt sprint.
The 1200 watt sprint is now more like 800 these days.
So James, I just have to note that at the time that we did HSRL 1, you absolutely pounded me. I was a lower C than you were.
I don't think we can really talk about C racing without me mentioning my one and only gold trophy in C when we did what was it, Caspat, and I won by a single point.
It was amazing. That was a great win.
I know. No, Craig, I remember being in C, and I think Steve was in D, but I don't remember you being a lower category than me. I always thought you were better.
No, so we were both C, but I was always chasing you in both the standings and individual races. So no, in Series One you were a little better than me. I did finish last in several of Series One C races.
Well, that escalated quickly.
It did.
Boy, that's shocking that you're now a fairly high level B.
Well, I mean, to be fair, I wasn't really training much for more than a month before HSRL 1 happened.
Okay, so you're kind of fighting your way into shape.
Well, so I was in pretty good shape, but I hadn't really done cycling, so my history's
Gotcha.
running.
Okay.
Yeah, and
I think from my point of view, I wasn't in particularly good shape, and my history definitely wasn't running unless someone really big and heavy was chasing me. But yeah, no, I do like that. I think you'll probably agree, Craig, that we sort of developed at sort of similar paces, and we both got to very very top end of B at a very very sort of similar time and over a similar time scale. So it's been fun. I will definitely say your racecraft your racecraft is much better than mine, and I fully expect to finish behind you over this series. But it's always been really fun racing with you.
well, thank you. I do expect to finish behind you in this weekend's HSRL because that is watts per kilogram, and it's a 17 or 18 minute go as hard as you can, and I don't expect to do that well.
This was my one chance at winning a race, and I blew that as well. So, talking about this weekend's race, so it is the first weekend. So, this weekend in the Herd Summer Racing League, we have the first event in our new series. This weekend sees us take on the 8-kilometre Bologna TT stage. The good news is that it's 75% flat, with only a little 230-metre bump over the final 2 kilometres. Set your best time as you set off on a staggered start and see how it stacks up against the competition. Craig, you and I could talk about this route for a very, very long time. What's
And
your
we
strategy?
have. So yeah, we can and we have, and I mean honestly, it all boils down to two or three things. I mean the first one is you need to go harder on the hill than you do on the flat, and this is what I struggle with. I always go out too hard. Aero matters more than you think it does, and a TT bike is the best setup. But I mean, all of that analysis that you see on Zwift Insider and everywhere else is based on someone that is essentially me, with that weighs right around 75 kilograms and has an FTP close to 300. So a really high level B. When you start getting into low C's and D's, and especially guys that have higher watts than 300 but lower watts per kilogram, then that's where you start getting into, maybe aiming towards climbing a little bit might work. But it's tight. Basically go aero and go easier on the flat than you're going to go on the climb.
I did this race earlier, and I think the hardest thing, apart from the fact the hill was absolutely disgusting and really, really hard, the second hardest part is actually moderating your pace on the flat.
I agree with that. It's a very hard to keep from going out too hot on that flat part.
Yeah, so I know my best times have not been my last two or three attempts at this course, and it's because I have gone out faster and faster and faster. So that's definitely my trouble on this.
Yeah, I mean, so today I set myself targets based on what I thought were the very, very upper limits of what I could do. Do you think that over the last couple, you've probably set yourself targets that are even a little bit higher than that?
Yes, far more than what I can actually do. So I mean, I've been the last two. I've basically tried to go a little over FTP on the flat and then way over FTP on the hill, and that just doesn't work.
You end up blowing up just
Yeah.
before the finish, don't you?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do the same thing. So I'm right there with you. I can never pace the flat section properly, and every time I blow up right before that last the turn underneath the bridge or the overpass, whatever it is, through the wall. At that turn, I am completely sunk every time.
Yeah,
So,
I know I can do this because so when we did the I think it was New Year's Eve team time trial on Bologna, and I had several dropouts that day, and I was quite a bit back, and I eventually just kind of went into like steady state, zone 3-ish on the flat, and then absolutely hammered it when I finally hit the hill. And I caught my team. I can't remember how many seconds I made up. It was more than I thought I was going to be able to. But I made it up long before we hit the top. And
I was in this team. I think you were 30 seconds back, and you absolutely hammered the hill. It was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen.
But it was I'd half given up because I was at FTP and trying to go, because I knew I could go pretty close to how fast the front was going, but I just couldn't keep up with the bunch. And then so I said, no, it's not going to happen here. I'm not going to catch them on the flat. So I just kind of backed off to save up and said, if I'm going to catch them, it's going to be on the hill. And it works. Going hard on the hill works. I just need to get that into my head on the individual time trial.
I also remember, I mean, we did 2 laps. And I just remember Steve Pritchard, I think it was the first lap. The pace we were going was basically in between his 2 preferable gears. So he was basically just pulling in front of us because he obviously didn't want to fall behind, but he couldn't find a gear to do the same pace. I mean, obviously, for reasons unbeknown to us, he couldn't have chosen a different cadence. But Steve's happy pace was just a little bit faster than the rest of the group. Although I can't remember exactly, but he probably paid for it on the second lap. But that was a very enjoyable race, and it was the first day of the Festive 500 as well. Because why wouldn't you start a 500-kilometer week with 2 laps of Bologna? I mean, it just makes perfect sense.
Yep, it was loads of fun anyway.
It really was. Coming up this week, so obviously we have the Bologna TT over Friday to Sunday this weekend. Sunday and Monday in the herd of mountain goats, we have the delightful 1,534 meters of climbing that is Ventop in France. I'm going to come back to this actually because I want your opinion, Craig and Sean. Our no draft individual time trial series on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday is UCI Harrogate for 2 laps. Then in the herd series, we our ladies only category racing series, we have 5 or 6 laps of Seaside Sprint. It's 6 if you're A or B, 5 if you are C or D, and that's a fastest through segment points race again. Exactly the same principle as Herd Summer Racing League. And finally on Wednesday, Thursday, we have the first event of Bullseye, which is our multi-lap first over the line points series. We have 12 laps of Downtown Dolphin. Just coming back to UCI Harrogate, mainly for my own benefit, because I can't make up my own mind. Considering there is no draft and it's an individual time trial, do you take a TT bike or do you Tron it?
TT bike.
Definitely a TT bike.
Even though it's basically 50% up, 50% down?
Yes, because it's 50% down.
Yep.
Canyon.
It's just too powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you could go with the Cervelo was it C5? Or P5, sorry, but not the P5X, but the P5, because that is, I think, the best climbing TT bike. But you definitely want TT bike, and I think it's still Speed Max.
So I was going to go Canyon Speed Max with 858 Super 9s, but I just wasn't sure, because it's such a bumpy route, whether or not something slightly non-TT might work.
So I would probably opt out of the disc maybe and go with like the 858 or the 454s. That's my choice for a lot of the hillier stuff. If I have to go with an aero bike, I typically will throw one of those on.
I think either way it's going to be quite painful.
Absolutely.
We did everything bagel last week, and as horrible as it was a really, really fun event. And I've Stampede is one of the series that I've really wanted to get into, and with ZRL not happening at the moment because of the summer break, it's given me the opportunity to. I absolutely hate and I absolutely love individual time trials. I absolutely hate how I feel, but I actually really enjoy them at the same time.
It's a great personal test. Nothing exposes the weaknesses like that does.
I think personally what's been so important to me about doing ITTs is having a plan before you start. With like your standard scratch races with draft, it's hang on to the group, try and leave a little bit sprint at the end. But I think with ITTs, it's so much more a case of planning what you're going to do on the flat sections and what you're going to do on the hills. So on everything bagel last week, I planned to do 3.7 on the flats and 4.5 on the two New York comms, and that worked fairly well. Unfortunately to me, there are a couple of guys who were heavier than me that have the same watts per kilo, so no chance there, mate. I cannot compete with guys who are going to be putting out 330 watts and also doing 3.7 on the flat.
That is rough.
Stampede's been a lot of fun. Quick shout out to Nigel Spink and Lee Hodgson, who have been fantastic competition at my end, and also all the hogs as well, the herd of galloping stallions who have been having great battles in the bees. Simon Gardner, Hugh Shepherds, Gary Raven, going to forget some people. I love you all, but I've forgotten your names. I'm really sorry. And there's always Ernst Lackeys, who's an absolute diamond.
Ernst is amazing on TTs. I love it.
I think we've got a little potential herd championship series coming up to talk about. Off the top of my head, I'm going to have to look it up now. I can't remember the dates. So the Herd Club Championship will be absolutely disgusting, brutal, and the greatest thing in the entire world. So from the 3rd to the 8th of September, we will have 4 races. They are basically our 4 mixed series. So Herd Summer Racing League, followed by Herd of Mountain Goats, followed by the Stampede, followed by Bullseye. So this is basically going to be 3 laps of London Loop for Herd Summer Racing League on the 3rd, 4th, 5th of September. That will feature 3 fastest through segment efforts on Box Hill. Then
and the London Sprint.
Oh, we do have a sprint as well. Yep, sorry, you're quite right. So we've got 3 lots of the mile sprint as well. Then on Sunday, Monday, so the 5th and the 6th of September, we have a race to the top event top for Herd Mountain Goats. For the Stampede, so 5th, 6th, and 7th. It's an ITT around Volcano Climb after party, so 3 3 laps of Watopia, no, not Watopia, Volcano Flat, the third of which you turn up to Volcano and climb your little hearts out. And then finally, on the 8th of September, we will have Bullseye, which is 8 laps of Queen's Highway in Yorkshire. So 8 opportunities for points over the line with double points on the final lap. Craig, I think it's going to be absolutely disgusting and horrible, but at the same time, absolutely beautiful.
This is going to be, yes, both of those things. I was not expecting you to do this on Ventop week of the Mountain Goats, but so thank you very much for that. But thank you very much for taking my suggestion on this, because I think this is going to be absolutely amazing. And I'm not claiming this as my sole idea. I'm sure other people have suggested this in the past, but I think a multi-day race like this is I think going to be really fun.
So on the topic of Ventop, I guess obviously we had it in Herd Summer Racing League last series. Shawn McAfee, has Stephen Pritchard ever reached out to you about the one time he beat you in a race?
On Ventop?
Yep.
Yes, he has made that known.
I genuinely cannot emphasize how excited he was when he realized he'd beaten you. He was the happiest man in the entire world.
Well, I was happy for him. That was a bad race for me, but man, that was a brutal climb.
I remember Simon Shifty Gardner. He was on Discord, and a few of us were, and he went, "Oh bloody hell, James, you're only 30 seconds behind me." I was like, "Really? Okay." And Ben held 3.5 watts per kilo for the next 25 minutes. Absolutely killed me, but I got past Simon, and that absolutely made my race. I think on that note, there's so much importance on, if you're not winning races, the individual battles that you have during those races will always give you motivation, and sometimes it can be quite hard if you're towards the bottom half of the field. It's always so important to look for those little battles to give you motivation, because if you're doing the same race time every week, you'll probably meet the same people every week. And certainly for me in HBR over winter, I kept on bumping into Loris van der Castile, one of our Italian racers, and we generally finish within 1 or 2 positions of each other, probably 5 weeks in a row, and that's what made it for me.
That's how we all got connected here. Was I kept seeing Craig on a weekly basis, both on Facebook as well as out in the races, and we just that's a little common bickering back and forth. It's good for you.
It is. And Shawn, I definitely missed you. You on our HBR, the uncategorized series over the winter, and I had great battles with Clay Jackson through there, who is apparently now disguised as Uncle something or other.
Uncle Bangle, yeah. There's a story behind that, but I don't know it.
So anyway, so I had great battles with him. So he stood in for you as my dirt nemesis. But
awesome.
I'm glad to have you back.
Man, we just really enjoy the friendemy. Is it frenemy relationship that we've got with you guys. So we have a lot of fun with the herd series, and herding is probably our favorite pastime now.
Sure. One of the things I meant to ask earlier, I'm fairly certain Dirt have a bunch of social rides. Do you guys run any races of your own?
We that's actually a really good question. I don't know the answer to right now. We used to run some Wednesday morning races in conjunction with USA Cycling. We used to have one on Sundays, but I think that it might be out currently. We have a lot of huge slate of social rides, and I wish I had a better answer for that because I don't know what races we might have right now.
On another note, I am jealous of the fact I think you have 6 different kits, and we just have for one.
We do have, I think, 4 now.
Fair enough. You'll have to give me a few tips on how we can get our black and red racing kit into Zwift afterwards. But we were absolutely delighted after a very long time of trying to get the herd racing kit in as a little Christmas present from Zwift last year. And it's always very gratifying to see other people wearing the herd kit. I saw a couple when I was just doing a free ride yesterday and gave them both a wave. They didn't wave back, but they probably don't understand the value of the wave. I think we're probably just about there for tonight. Shawn, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on here, and it's been an absolute pleasure having Dirt getting involved in many of our racing series, HBR and HSRL in particular. But thank you very much for giving up some of your valuable time to come and chat with us tonight. Big thanks also to Craig. And just one more. Good luck, Stephen Pritchard. I hope tomorrow is an absolute treat, and I hope you have a fantastic day. And the one piece of advice I will give you is take a minute with Harriet. Just escape for even 5 minutes and just sit back and think, yes, we did it. We are great. Have a brilliant day. And a big thank you to everyone for listening. Good night from me.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Thanks for having me.